So this is the last day for this particular setup here in my studio editing bay, shall we call it, and my general office, because I've been alerted that my Mac Studio is out for delivery. So it could actually turn up at any moment. It's getting on for noon, and I've got Amanda out mowing the lawn, so the lawnmower may start up. The iMac is going into the upstairs office as a secondary computer, and it's still actually quite a good computer. It has 32 gigabytes of RAM. I have my BenQ 4K monitor, and I don't think you've seen this before if you are a regular visitor. I bought this Asus. I forget what the resolution is, it's not 4K. And I also have this audio unit and a couple of speakers. I'll do a separate video on all this when I pull it all together. Okay, here it is. And there will be an unboxing. So here's the unboxing. Now, those of you who hate unboxing videos, now would be the time to skip ahead. I'll put in some timestamps. And it sounds like Amanda's doing a great job mowing the lawn. Okay, let's do this. That's handy dandy. Here's our outer box. And look, Mac Studio. Oh, that opens up nicely. No, okay. Apple boxing is like, even that's origami. But here's the actual unit itself. And we've got this little thing to pull here. Little tab. That's awesome. And okay, I've seen this 100 times. The time that I've been waiting for this to arrive, what has it been? Several months. I've seen 100 of these unboxing videos, but this is my unboxing video. And I've seen how wonderful this is put together. So that slides out like that. Okay, I said I'd watched 100 of these, but I'm still okay. This looks like the little instruction quick start. I don't think. Then this. And here's the unit itself. No, the cable's in there. Here's our cable. That's an awesome. Let me put this here. That's awesome. And I'll be keeping that like I do all my boxes for everything. I've got boxes of boxes. That pulls off like that. Oh, that is just like, who figures this stuff out? There's my studio. My Mac Studio. So let's get this thing all hooked up. Waiting for Apple support.
Thanks for contacting Apple support. My name is Trevor. Can I get your first and last name, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Trevor. It's Raymond Parker. Hi, Ray here. I'm glad you could join me for this. It's kind of a retrospective of sorts. I've had the Nikon Z6 for 3 months and the Mac Studio for just over a month. More than a year ago, with the announcement of the Nikon Z6 mirrorless camera, I brought up the subject of computing power. As in, do you have enough if you're planning on buying a Z6? As well as expanded storage, because rumored specs included 8K video. Just 3 months back, with the release of the Mac Studio, while I awaited the arrival of my Z6, I asked if Apple's new desktop solution might not be a suitable marriage partner for the Z6. Well, jump forward to today, and I have both the Nikon Z6 and Mac Studio, so I can speak perhaps with more authority on the subject. Certainly my existing computers that I had before, a late 2012 iMac and 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro, both Intel powered, were no match for the 8K video, especially RAW that the Z6 outputs. And if you're a regular visitor, you've maybe heard my complaints, but it's worth repeating that even 4K video, with added effects, titles, etc., made my MacBook, which had become my main computer for video editing, well, it made it heat up and spin its fans like an air conditioner during a heat dome. Thermal throttling slowed it way down below its claimed capabilities, and there was no way I could edit even 4K without using proxy media. For those unfamiliar, Proxy media is a smaller, lower resolution file that apps like Final Cut Pro can render. It's kind of, well, as it says, a proxy file which enables smooth editing until you re-engage the original for final rendering of the video. So, creating the proxy media takes time before you can begin editing. Okay, it's not a huge deal, but it does require that extra step. When it came to 8K, I found I couldn't even play a single stream recorded with the Z9. Proxy was an absolute must for any kind of work with it. So, I avoided using it for the first month or so I had the Z9. I waited 4 months for the arrival of my Z9, almost as long for the Mac Studio, because I sprang for the Ultra version with its dual Ultra Fusion enhanced M1 chip, and I sprang for a larger 4TB SSD drive. More on the specs later. Finally, on May 20th, the Mac Studio turned up, actually a week or so before the estimated date. I'd been preparing for its arrival for a week or two. When I edited my first video with the Mac Studio, excitement turned to disappointment because it wasn't half as fast as I expected. In fact, my first attempt editing a multicam project, a video with multiple angles recorded on different cameras, including an 8K stream from the Z9, and in this case a screen recording from an iPhone, well, I still got terrible stuttering drop frames. Just a minute. I was editing from an external SSD, a Samsung T5, which generally gets me read speeds around 500 megabits a second. Why did I pay an extra $1,250 to upgrade the base 1TB to a blindingly fast 4TB SSD? Not that the 4TB is inherently faster than 1TB. These SSDs are reportedly super fast, but more storage space can enhance performance. Anyway, aside from the fact that Samsung has released a faster T7 external SSD since I invested in the T5s, the T7 can reach read speeds of around 800 megabits a second, if I recall. Perhaps I'd been blaming the MacBook for some of the sluggishness that was bottlenecked at the Samsung drive. So I've changed my workflow. I'm now editing on the internal Mac Studio, then, at intervals, moving finished projects and libraries to external storage. And, without expanding the content of this video too much, I'll say that, for the time being, my storage and backup strategy is this. I'm running the Mac's Time Machine on this SanDisk 18TB external drive, and I'm waiting for a second one to back that one up. This arrived within an hour at the computer. As expected, it's not the quietest of drives if you sit it on your desk. But I found a foam pad pretty much eliminated the vibration, and the fan itself is basically inaudible, unlike the Mac Studios. I have it partitioned with 8TB allotted to back up the Mac itself and the rest for archiving other video files. And that should last me a while. While setting the system up, I resurrected a 10-year-old Promise Pegasus RAID system I used with the old iMac, and I'm running it as RAID 0. Yes, I'm a daredevil. It's where I now archive completed videos. However, yesterday I went to transfer some files over and the Mac Studio didn't recognize it. I spent an hour with Apple support. At this point there's still no resolution. I might have to try a reinstall of the OS and or reformat the drives, but I'm too busy at the moment, as you can see. I'll maybe make a video on my backup system, my rationale. If there's interest, let me know in the comments. So this is the base M1 Ultra model with 20-core CPU, 48-core GPU, 32-core neural engine, 64GB unified memory. As I said, I upgraded the stock 1TB SSD to 4TB. Setting up the Mac was relatively simple. It helps to have a wired mouse around to perform the preliminary steps. I have the Bluetooth mouse and keyboard that I used with the MacBook in clamshell mode with the CalDigit T3 hub. So that was just a formality. It connected without a problem. I took this opportunity to organize my office a bit more. Does that ever end? And part of that included better cable management. As part of getting ready for the Mac Studio, I bought a couple more adapters for existing cables. I had an HDMI cable and I was using DisplayPort for the BenQ monitor. I might have saved myself money by just buying new cables because the adapters are stupid expensive. On the back, this Mac Studio has 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 2 USB-A ports, 1 HDMI port, 1 10 gigabit Ethernet port, 1 3.5mm headphone jack. The 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the front I find incredibly useful for external card readers and drives, for downloading files and syncing my drives. Again, I'd be happy to make a video on the latter if you're interested. I've pretty much used all those on the back. I have a USB-A hub. I'm running that in this cubicle for other peripherals like my USB mic and Wacom tablet. And finally, I added these Command brand stick-on plastic light clips to run cables behind the desk. I found them at Staples, and incidentally, for some reason, the outdoor version was half the price of the indoor. The only use I have for the SD card reader is for downloading files from the Tascam DR60D Mark II audio recorder. And the GoPro with the adapter for the micro cards. Everything else I own records through XQD or CF Express. A couple of minor beefs. I don't use the awkwardly placed rear headphone jack. The audio interface takes care of that. And speaking of awkward, I'm not a fan of the power button placement also on the back. It's tiny and blends into the enclosure. I'm getting more and more used to it, but I think it could have been placed on the front or made to stand out so you can feel where it is. So, is this computer worth the investment? Yes, I think it is. Aside from my initial disappointment with video editing due to the third-party peripheral, I've since been extremely impressed with its editing power. When it comes to video processing, I'll just give you a typical example. An 18-minute multicam project, 3 angles with effects, plenty of text, color corrections, LUTs on some clips, B-roll, and an 8K stream, under 10 minutes to render. So I'm not going to repeat the kind of benchmarks that other tech channels have already done weeks ago. This represents real-world results for me. It's knocking off hours of waiting and frustration and getting these videos to you with much less fussing in less time. When it comes to photo improvements, not quite so clear there. In fact, so far I'm not seeing anything that makes me say, wow. When it comes to working in Lightroom, I've experienced some weird behavior, thumbnails not loading in color presets, even when the actual preset can be used still. It took me a while to notice it worked despite the absence of the thumbnails. I'm not about to blame this on the computer. There was an update for Lightroom yesterday, was it? Anyway, I haven't tried it yet. We'll see if that's fixed anything. Speaking of Lightroom, components for a DIY external 4TB SSD arrived today. It'll be much faster than the T5s I've been using. Not that I experienced any great problem with those for photo editing. Anyway, this will be my new home for my Lightroom photos. I'll give you a closer look in an upcoming video. I do think Adobe is still not well optimized for silicon. We know, for instance, that Bridge is still running on Rosetta. I'd be interested to hear how Premiere users are finding performance, if there's anybody out there that's watching. As far as other peripherals go, my main photo printer, the Epson Stylus Pro 4900, once I deleted and re-added it, it worked fine. My Wacom Intuos 5 tablet, the desktop center works. Glad to see Wacom is keeping those drivers up to date. Same with my Epson Perfection 7500 scanner, no problems. As for the general office printer, a Canon Pixma MP210, must be at least a decade old. That works when it feels like it with a Mac Studio. Canon has abandoned it, but I found drivers from Gutenprint, which I thought extended the printer's useful life, but as I say, it works intermittently, randomly, which is a bummer, because I still have about $100 worth of ink for it in the cupboard. The Mac Studio is not as quiet as some reviews claim, and not as loud as others have complained. Maybe those who report it as irritating got a bad copy. No denying the fan noise is there. it remains as long as the computer is running, although it's not as loud as the airplane that's going by, or there's a transformer on the other side of this wall that's really irritating if I tune into it. How about the Z9? Well, it's a great camera, but this video has turned out to be much longer than anticipated, so I'll return with more on the Z9 soon. In the meantime, there's now over 120 videos to choose from on this channel, including this one. Check it out. I hope you got something useful out of this episode. If you did, please give it the old thumbs up. And if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss new content. In the meantime, again, take care of yourself. Cheers, and we'll see you later.